taking it this morning. I told her to text me and let me know. Good morning. I would like to welcome everyone to the Education Professions Committee meeting. We welcome those of you in attendance. Thank you for your interest in the work of the State Board of Education. Do we have any visitors or news media to recognize? Committee members, you have before you the minutes from our October the 10th committee meeting. Is there any objection to approving the minutes as presented? Hearing none, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Next, I ask for approval of the agenda for today's committee meeting. Is there any objection to approving the agenda as presented? Hearing none, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. We do not have anyone signed up for public comment today. Now moving on to committee items. For approval today, we have 4 items. Our first item is a new educator preparation program approval recommendation, Coastal Carolina University Bachelor Degree Programs. We have Dr. Ritter with us today from the Office of Educator Services to present.
Good morning.
Morning.
Coastal Carolina University has developed and submitted a new updated BA and BS programs leading to certification in biology, chemistry, English, mathematics, physics, and social studies. The proposals have been reviewed by external subject experts and the Professional Review Committee for rigor and to ensure that they meet the requirements established in South Carolina statute, regulation, and guidelines. The PRC approved the proposals on October 13, 2023, and voted to recommend the programs for State Board of Education approval. The SCDE recommends that the SBE approve the Coastal Carolina University programs for certification of candidates and the certification of biology 9 through 12, chemistry grades 9 through 12, English 9 through 12, mathematics 9 through 12, physics 9 through 12, and social studies grades 9 through 12. If approved, programs will begin with the fall of 2024's academic semester.
Thank you, Dr. Ritter. Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Board Member Kriminger made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Board Member Harrington seconded the motion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Item 2 is a new educator preparation program approval recommendation, Converse University, Bachelor of Arts and Master of Arts in Teaching degree programs. Dr. Ritter will present this item for approval as well.
Thank you. Converse University has developed and submitted 2 new programs. One is a Bachelor of Arts in Special Education, multi-categorical, and the other a Master of Arts in Teaching, Special Education, multi-categorical. Both are grade spans PK through 12. The proposals have been reviewed by external subject experts and the Professional Review Committee for rigor and to ensure that they meet the requirements established in South Carolina statute, regulation, and guidelines. The PRC approved the proposals on October 13, 2023, and voted to recommend them for SBE approval. The SCDE recommends that the State Board of Education approve the Converse University Bachelor of Arts and Master of Arts in Teaching programs in Special Education, multi-categorical, grades PK through 12. If approved, these programs will begin with the spring of 2024's academic semester.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Dr. Ritter? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Board Member Slaughter made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Board Member Kriminger seconded the motion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. The third item today is a Professional Review Committee, PRC, new member approval. Jacqueline Walsh from the Office of Educator Services will present.
Thank you very much. State Board Regulation 4390 establishes that all teacher education programs meet the national, are we doing the accreditate, I'm sorry, what is
It's
03?
It's the new member approval.
Thank you, I'm so sorry about that. I got you. So the South Carolina Educator Preparation Guidelines establish the composition and terms for the members of the PRC, or the Professional Review Committee. The State Board must approve all new committee members, and the PRC is comprised of 13 voting members, including representatives of both public and private institutions of higher education. PRC members are appointed to staggered 3-year terms of service. 2 current PRC members will conclude their regular terms of service this month, and the PRC must also fill a vacancy created by a recent resignation of a private institution committee member beginning with the 2023-24 academic year. On Friday, October 13th, the PRC voted to recommend Aaron Hamill of Winthrop University to fill the public institution representative vacancy. Mark McCann of Columbia University was voted to fill the private institution representative seat. And additionally, Machiko McClary of Morris College was recommended to fill a vacancy due to a recent resignation on the committee for a term of service through December 2025. The SCDE recommends that the State Board approve the recommendations of new appointments for service on the PRC. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Board Member Slaughter made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
So moved.
Board Member Harrington seconded the motion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. The final item for approval is National Accreditation Decision, Charleston Southern University. Mrs. Walsh will also present.
Thank you. I'm very excited to tell you about this one, apparently. The State Board Regulation 4390, of course, establishes that all teacher education programs meet the standards of the National Accreditation Association with which the department has a partnership agreement. The SCDE's partnership agreement is with the Council for the Accreditation of Educator Preparation, or CAPE. The State Board has adopted the CAPE standards as national provider standards, which all South Carolina institutions must meet in order to maintain or achieve accreditation status. Charleston Southern University, as a private institution, could choose to do a state review or seek national accreditation. This institution chose to seek national accreditation and underwent a rigorous review in the spring of 2023. As a result, CAPE awarded Charleston Southern University's initial and advanced level certification programs accreditation through fall 2030. Charleston Southern also demonstrated evidence that all state requirements were sufficiently met. So the South Carolina Department of Education recommends that the State Board affirm the CAPE accreditation decision for Charleston Southern University.
That is very good news. Thank you for sharing that. Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve? Board Member Slaughter made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Board Member Kremenger seconded the motion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. We have one item for information only this morning. It is review of certification assessment options for reading. Mary Hipp from the Office of Educator Services will present.
Good morning, everyone. Happy holidays. Time's behind us already. I'm presenting an information item today, sharing with you our review and plans in the coming months to review several certification assessments in the field of reading. This is part of the agency's ongoing focus on literacy instruction, improving literacy instruction for students. And so I just kind of want to go through what we're working on right now. And actually, as I told Ms. Lee, I'm going to give her a little homework here as well. So as you know, when the Read to Succeed Act was adopted in 2014, one of the requirements was that the state and the State Department adopt literacy competencies. And so in 2015, the South Carolina literacy competencies were developed and implemented. And there are 4 sets of these competencies. The first for PK through grade 5 teachers, the second for middle and high school content area teachers, a third set focusing on administrators, and a fourth set of competencies that focus on reading and literacy coaches. And so the pre-service and the in-service courses related to Read to Succeed must be aligned to these particular competencies. And as Jackie and James can attest, the pre-service competencies that my office works with and the pre-service programs, those courses have been reviewed, and those institutions have to provide assurances of alignment to those competencies. But again, they were created in 2015. There's an increasing focus on the science of reading and changes in how we focus on preparing teachers to teach reading to kids. And so right now, our agency's Office of Early Learning and Literacy is nearing completion of an update to those PK through grade 5 literacy competencies. They have consulted with the Florida Center for Reading Research to review the competencies. In fact, they did that in the summer. They have worked on the competencies this fall, and even last week submitted a new draft to the Florida Center for their input. They've also worked with offices across our agency, so educator preparation in my office, educator effectiveness, special education services, and then the Office of Federal and State Accountability to seek guidance and input from other teams within the agency regarding the literacy competencies. Their focuses have really been on aligning those competencies with scientific principles of reading instruction, and then ensuring that the competencies address connections to and are aligned with our newest college and career standards for ELA, those standards that just rolled out. So that preparation is nearing completion. I believe Matthew's got some significant reading and approval ahead of him. But we're really excited about the update to this document because it's going to mean for us then that we work with our ed prep providers and to make sure that they have aligned their instruction with the updated competencies. So in the months ahead, we will work with our ed prep providers, particularly around those pre-service programs in early childhood, elementary, and special ed, to ensure that the courses they are offering to prepare candidates are aligned with those updated competencies. So part of our work is to develop a timeline and a process for that review. Jackie and James, in fact, are meeting this afternoon with our colleagues in the state of Georgia who are engaged in similar work right now to get a sense of what they're doing and how they've conducted that readiness assessment for their providers. Providers will be expected to implement the new competencies, and as part of that, our Office of Early Learning and Literacy is offering a letters cohort for ed prep faculty, and so that will begin in January, and they will have 40 higher ed faculty members involved in that process over the next year and a half. So what does that mean in terms of the work of our office, and particularly around this idea of a reading assessment for certification purposes? I think many of you may know that there are proposed amendments to the Read to Succeed Act that would require a reading assessment for certification in early childhood, elementary, and special education. That bill did not complete the legislative process last session, the first of a two-year session. We think there will likely be movement again in the spring or as the legislature comes back in January. But regardless of the decision out of the General Assembly, the focus here and the belief here is that it's very important that we look at how our pre-service teachers are being prepared to teach reading, and part of that is adding this reading assessment to the certification process. So we are moving forward with a review of assessments, regardless of what may happen in the General Assembly, but our work is aligned with whatever change might come through that process as well. So here's what we're looking at. As we explore reading assessments, we first want to make sure that the assessments that we're looking at and that we may adopt are aligned to the scientific principles of reading instruction. We want to make sure that it's an adequate assessment of candidate knowledge in reading instruction, and that it also requires candidates to apply what they know in authentic scenarios. And I know that seems hard to do in a test, but that's part of the test design process, and there are opportunities for application within assessments. We're also looking at external reviews of tests. So for instance, the National Council for Teacher Quality, or NCTQ, is an external agency or entity that's done a fair amount of research and around reading instruction at the pre-service level, and looking particularly at reading assessments. So we've looked at their guidance and their vetting of several assessments. We also want to consider testing schedule and test availability for candidates. It does no good to adopt a test if it's not available to candidates. So we would need to look at that, and then we also have to consider cost to candidates, because we recognize that for some candidates, this will be adding an additional assessment, and that is an additional cost to them. So we're very mindful of that as well. There are 3 assessments that we are considering for adoption as options, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. They're the 2 that are in existence right now. The Pearson Foundations of Reading exam is used in 13 states. The Praxis 5205, Teaching Reading Elementary, is used in another 13 states. There's actually one state that uses both. And then ETS is developing a 3rd test right now. Will be a subtest as part of that 4-part elementary series. And it actually takes 5205, that teaching reading test, and removes the constructive response questions and some of the developmental questions in there, and would be a part of that elementary series. That test is actually at the point in the process of a standard setting study that's taking place actually this week. So those are the 3 tests that we are considering. So as part of this process, what might a test in reading look like if we added it to a candidate certification? So if we look right now, for certification in early childhood education, we're required in state statute, all right, for a subject area assessment and a pedagogy assessment. So our early childhood candidates right now have a choice of one of 2 exams to demonstrate content knowledge, Praxis 5204 or 5024, and 5025. We actually adopted the 2nd exam several years ago, as I think many of you may remember, during the early days of COVID, when the testing centers closed down and ETS went very quickly to an online platform to offer testing, they did not initially offer every test online. And so we actually adopted a 2nd assessment so that our candidates in early childhood could actually complete that certification process. And we have kept that option available. We have 3 options for candidates in terms of a pedagogy exam. Most of our traditionally prepared teachers take the Principles of Learning and Teaching exam, but we do have one college that uses PPAT, and Winthrop University actually requires EdTPA, a performance assessment, for their candidates. So again, candidates have an option of one of those 3. This also benefits folks coming to us from another state who may have taken one of these other assessments. We can accept those here as well. So if we were to add a reading assessment to this paradigm here, here's what it might look like. So again, we would keep the subject area requirement, the pedagogy requirement would remain the same, and we're actually considering the possibility of 3 options for reading. So looking at that 5205, the Praxis assessment, and also the Pearson Foundations of Reading. Both of those tests have been reviewed by NCTQ and are aligned with the science of reading. Praxis 7002 is that subtest I mentioned that's in development. I think that's probably the one we have the biggest question mark about right now, simply because we haven't seen it yet. We're in process of looking at that. So what we're doing is this. Our review will begin more fully in January with information sessions that we're hosting with ETS and Pearson. Those will be virtual. Really focus groups to allow us to take a deeper look at 5205 and the Foundations of Reading Assessment. It will involve members of our staff in educator preparation, our certification staff, but also other folks here in the agency focused on ELA, early learning and literacy, our special education colleagues. We'll also invite some of educator preparation faculty to participate in those focus groups, as well as some district representatives as well. I'd also like for some of you to consider participating in that focus group because we have several board members who have a background in early childhood, elementary, or special education. So if you are interested in joining us in that, please let me know. And if I don't hear from you, I'll come knocking on the door because we do want you involved in that process. What this will involve, again, we're looking at the testing documentation, taking a look at the items on the assessment, really getting a better sense of what's involved, looking at those external evaluations of those assessments, talking to our colleagues in other states who are using them. And then part of the process will be recommending assessments for adoption and the cut scores that will go with that. We also have to consider here an implementation timeline, because you can't suddenly adopt a new reading assessment for candidates and expect them to take it beginning next September. So we need to think about the phase-in of that process, when it would become consequential for certification. And then we also would like to consider possibilities of some pilot testing as well. So as part of our broader certification assessment program, typically my office comes before the board either late spring, early summer, sometimes May, sometimes June, to bring new assessments to you for adoption. So our plan is to bring a recommendation to you in 2024 with our annual updates to the certification assessment program. And again, that recommendation will include an implementation timeline, and we will certainly consider how our EPPs will need to align courses and can take that into consideration in working with their candidates. They're already going to be in the process of reviewing their courses in light of the revised literacy competencies. So all of this seems part of that same process for them and for us as we kind of look at how candidates are prepared to teach reading when they enter classroom practice. So that's it. Questions that I can help y'all with? Yes, ma'am.
I have just like a super logistical question.
Sure.
I took the practice 10 years ago. So when I said I took like an elementary ed subject and I did everything all at one time, based on those options, is there an option for them to sit for the practice one time and complete
That's a
all
really
of their
good
classes?
question. So let's take elementary for example. So both of our subject area tests in elementary are 4-part tests. They're 4 subtests: reading, language arts, math, science, social studies. Candidates do have an option to sit for all 4 of those at one time. Some do. Some recognize, I don't know that I want to sit for an entire day of testing. So they can break that and schedule them separately. Typically, ETS offers a slightly reduced price if you bundle the assessments and take several of them at the same time. But again, it's a candidate's option. But that's a really good question. These assessments too, most all certification assessments now are offered in 2 formats. Candidates can either go to a testing center and take the test there, or they have that online option. ETS calls it Praxis at Home, but that's available with both of these testing providers.
To follow up with her question, will this be an additional test or a substitution?
That's a good question. So for early childhood and for special education, it will be an additional test. For elementary, it's actually going to be a swap. Because what we will do with elementary, they already have this 4-part assessment for subject area knowledge and then the pedagogy assessment. We'll be able to swap out the reading language arts subtest for this reading assessment. But for early childhood and special ed, it will be an additional assessment.
What about secondary?
Secondary, those candidates, there's not a plan related to a reading assessment. The plan right now will be to look at eventually realigning those competencies for middle and high school to make sure that they are adequately addressing the science of reading. Because we all know we have students at the middle and high school level that still need considerable reading instruction to improve. And when you get through middle and high school, the literacy demands on those students, they increase dramatically. It's different. It's different to read material for an AP course than it is for some other content area. So there are different, I think, challenges for those students, and we need teachers very well prepared for those as well. But as far as the certification assessment in reading, no.
Do you expect there'll be pushback from early childhood and special ed? Because there's and I mean, I'm not saying that's a negative or a positive, I'm just curious because.
We've had conversations with higher ed for several years now because there's been draft legislation that has put this out as a possibility. So I actually think they're prepared for this. We're all very cognizant of the cost to candidates and the impact that this may have on candidates. The focus, though, is really on how do we ensure that these candidates, upon entering a classroom, have that foundational knowledge to teach reading effectively. That's what we're looking at. So.
How are the state colleges of education, are they voluntarily changes and adapting these new methods, or are there resistance?
Oh, I think yes. I mean, I think we're seeing that in an increasing degree as the greater focus on science of reading, letters that's being implemented in our PK-12 settings. They've been very interested. So we've seen that shift from our higher ed partners.
Legislation you were talking about that was stalled last year, is that
I wouldn't say it stalled. It's probably the wrong term. It got through the House, and it's now over in the Senate. All right, Ms. Allison's going to keep me honest over here. There were some pretty substantial revisions to that bill in the House, and then it went over to the Senate. So I expect it'll be in the Senate Education Committee in January.
Okay, so that will require these schools of education to,
It would,
Yeah.
it would. But what we have talked about here is because of our focus on literacy, and we recognize that this is an important part of ensuring that teachers are prepared, that regardless of what happens with the bill, we're moving forward with this process of reviewing an assessment and adopting an assessment.
well, I for one would be glad to help you if I can help you in any way.
Thank you. We appreciate that. All right.
Mary, can
Yes.
I ask, is there a specific test that is the special ed test, or is it the elementary test that the special ed teachers
For
will?
reading or for subject area?
Well, I know for subject area.
Right.
So for reading, there is?
For reading, it would be the elementary level.
It would be the
Yes,
elementary
ma'am.
level test. Okay.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And again, and I mentioned to Ms. Lee earlier, we brought this because we wanted you to be aware of the review process and what we're doing in the months ahead. But if there are other topics that you want us to bring before you as information items, please let us know, and we're glad to do that. So, all right.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you.
Hipp, and all presenters. Thank you very much. We will now ask for committee members to approve adding EP 1, 2, 3, and 4 to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to place action items 1 through 4 on the consent agenda?
Move.
Board Member Harrington made a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Board Member Slaughter seconded the motion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Is there any other business to come before the committee? Hearing none, we will adjourn. Thank you very much.